Welcome everyone to the Shadbolt Center for the launch of Blue Gait with special guest readers, Jónína Kirton and Renee Sarojini Saklikar. Before we begin this evening, as always, we want to acknowledge the lands, the unceded lands that we have grown on. I realized this morning that I have spent my whole life on unceded territories in safety, which is a different story than the story for many others, yeah? And so one thing that I tried to do in conjunction with our land acknowledgements is to think about one way I can decolonize my own heart, and one way I can decolonize my own practices in my living and in my working, and one way I can decolonize the structures under which we are all laboring that need to change. And so I invite you tonight, if that works for you, to use our land acknowledgements for those kinds of reflections. We are here on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Squamish and Hunkaminam speaking nations. I want to honor especially the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, whose territories this park resides on, and a special honoring of the work that the Tsleil-Waututh Nation has done, stewarding these territories, and in particular the renewal that they have contributed to over the last many years. I'm very honored tonight to welcome Fabian Williams George. Fabian is a medicine man and matriarchal chief of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and I would like to invite him now to come and say a few words and sing us into this evening's celebration.
Sam, thank you. Thank you, relatives. I want to thank you all for being here and being here on this land here. And, it's such a great country, this Canada. Like right across from here, right to the east coast and down south to north. It's all Turtle Island that my grandfathers would talk about like where my grandfather is gone, and and go and visit other nations across Turtle Island. It's good to see them go and do that. When I was young, I'd see them traveling around like that, all 5 brothers driving around to different nations and playing and singing, and they had a little band they called Chief Dan George Band, and they would play that violin and banjo and guitar and drums, and they'd go around to all the nations and make them feel good by singing. That was really an honor for me to see my uncles do that when I was just a kid like that, when I was young, to watch my uncles live off the land and bring us, salmon. And when it was salmon season, he'd bring us salmon and all the time, and bring us deer and elk, and through the seasons, our grandfathers and our father would look after us like that. We used to play along the Fraser River back in the day and catch salmon and live that life of a First Nation. And nowadays it's kind of hard to do stuff like that, we have deer over by my Ninipi Lodge, and it's pretty nice when we have ceremonies. The deer come and listen, And I said, wow, we have like a little hill like up here, and the deer would be standing up there listening to us singing. and they'd be watching a fire. You know, living like that, and back in those days, you know, I really liked that. But, you know, and thank the Creator for bringing us all together. You know, I really like the circle, but that's fine. Yeah. You know, we're gonna sing a prayer song, and no, I'm fifth generation. My grandfather was Henry George, and his brothers. He had 5 brothers. John Al was the youngest, and then Uncle Patty, and then Ignatius George, and then Henry George, and then one more uncle there. One of my uncles, he was, he died in North Van, and he was buried in North Van, just down from the church there on the Mission Reserve. And that was where my grandfather lived back before I was born. And they originally lived there. And then they built the school, that school up there, that residential school in the North Van. And then once that school was set there, and then the families wanted to be close to their children, so they would move down to the school and be close to their children when they were going to school. And that North Van there, that's where my grandfather was buried. One of my grandfathers, my younger brother. And then one of my Ignatius George, he wanted to be buried by his brother down there in North Van. We lived down in North Van and down towards Deep Cove. But and they wouldn't let him. So my uncle just buried like 3 feet above him. And you know that's what happens when our land was taken over by other nations on that territory there. And that does happen, you know. Even though we're all related, it still happens, right? But that's still politics too. So. But yeah, and my mother is Winona George. She's and my father was Donald Williams. He was from Ireland, yeah, I think so. So, and yeah, and I lived here all my life, and I seen Vancouver grow, and through Surrey up to Cam River, and back to North Van, and you know, I seen a lot of things grow. But what I get is when I like talking to my dad. He's 92 now, and his name is Donald Williams, and he says, oh wow, he tells a lot of good old stories about that good old days there, and I said, wow, that's a long time ago. So I'm just gonna, this prayer song, it's my great uncle's song, you know. He one day he was, long time ago actually, long time ago, he was, him and his cousin was down the beach one time, and they were down the beach and sitting around and singing, and then this song came to him, this prayer song came to him, and then the Creator gave this song to him, and it's really a simple song, and you know, we share this song with the whole nation, the whole Turtle Island, you know, I sang this song from Arizona to Yellowknife and all between, right? So it's pretty well known, and I really love it too. And this is a prayer song, so when we sing it, or you can sing it with me, just have a prayerful mind, you know. And yeah, okay, we just do it like that. Thank you, relatives, for we pray like this. We all need prayer for our loved ones. I want to thank you all for being here. Tahoe, thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. Now I feel like I'm here. So just so folks know, I'm just going to read one really quick poem for my granddaughter who needs to go to bed. And then I'm going to introduce Jónína for us, who's going to read for a little while, and then Renee, and then I'll finish off. And we're just going to read for about 10 minutes each. So then we can have a refreshment and some chatting afterwards, if that's okay. Oh, yeah. So this is just a little poem for my granddaughter Shay about when I was a little girl, and I just got to play outside all the time. And when you're little like that, you think everybody just gets to play outside all the time. And so in a way, it's about coming to understand the things I didn't know about the land and the creatures that were out there. And it's also a little bit about exploring, and mostly, though, it's to help us all remember that there's always more to learn. So, Shay, this is for you, and then you can go to bed. At her cheek, the wing-spread cedar. This is entrance. This is the time before sidewalks, street lamps. On the path between hedge and fencing, each bough caresses face, shoulders, belly, hands. She travels through to where fields roll broad and unkempt, flood pools like mirrors in the dip. Beyond the stolid flanks of sleeping horses, steam rising from their lowered heads. There is the sagging clapboard shed under the cypress, its blackened doorway where a new lamb comes, snuffles and roots, suckles the edge of her rubber boots. It is spring, and like always, the river has slipped its banks. Salmon appear in the low water, their bottle cap eyes snare the swifting current, thicken it, hold. The night is close, plush cloth. In its holes, star, star, tear of moon. Great animals from before the parceling, the squaring off of land rustle, bonelet, their flesh thin to shimmer, they drape the skies, bray. She does not know the cedar's brush, the horse's dreams, the lamb's hungry tether, nor the salmon's watchful force as blessing. Even the ambling sky beasts she cannot fathom. Though when morning pours its slender curve of light, her boots tucked muddy on the back porch stairs, the day envelops her, and all these old things fold in and in, a letter from home and here. Thank you. Thanks. Don't feel compelled to clap. It's okay. Some poems are quiet and they just want a little bit of silence, but you're free to do whatever you would like. It is my honor, absolutely, to share the evening with both Jónína and Renee. Jónína is an Icelandic Métis poet who graduated from SFU's Writers' Studio in 2007, which is a magical thing, that Writers' Studio, yes. She is now an instructor and a BIPOC auntie, and one of my new colleagues up at the art gallery, when she learned that you were coming, said, Oh, my literary auntie. So that was lovely to hear. We'll talk more about that. Although she acknowledges and is thankful for the teachings offered through academic institutions, she leans heavily into what some term other ways of knowing. Thank you. Her writing is often a weaving of body and land, as she firmly believes until we care for women's bodies, we will not care for the earth. Reading from Standing in the River of Time, please welcome Jónína Kirton.
Gosh, things were not this complicated before. Now I gotta change glasses. Oh, goodness me. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Oh, thank you. I just want to take a moment to enjoy the peace that Fabian brought to this room. Oh my goodness. I so needed that. I actually could cry. I didn't realize how much I needed it. And how much I needed to be with people. Other than my husband, I love him, but holy cow, that's a lot of time alone with each other in a small space, right? So thank you for having me, Shauna. Thank you. So I'm going to read mostly prose because I just finished a book that's prose and poetry. It'll be coming out next year with Talon Books. And I'm not accustomed to reading prose, so I hope I do okay. So it's going to have a little snippet from the first chapter, which sort of sets things up. That chapter is titled, 2 Women Drowning, One Survives. And it begins with a quote from Betsy Warland's Bloodroot, one of my favorite books ever. We were treading water with no shoreline in sight. My mother's cancer has returned. She's called me home to Winnipeg, not to tell me herself, but to send me to her doctor so he can tell me the news. Cancer has traveled to her lungs and her liver. She will not agree to any extraordinary measures, no radiation, chemo. There will be no surgery this time. For a long time, I was quite annoyed with her for not trying harder, but I now understand she was just tired. It was her second time with cancer, and we had a very challenging life. Lots of loss, lots of death, and she had cancer previously. So I'm going to jump ahead to chapter 6, where she sort of shows up in a different kind of way. And it's called Rebirth. We all come from somewhere. And this chapter begins with a quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves. It was my Bible. I read it over and over when my son was young. He's 30. If a woman has a collapsing mother, she must refuse to become one herself. I did feel that my mother was a bit of a collapsing mother. So just snippets here. Years later, she who saved me, my dear friend, the one from treatment, told me that a child showed up in my astrology chart. They would be born in 1990 or 1991. I thought she had to be wrong. I was certain that I was not meant to be a mother. Turns out, what they say about our biological clocks and the way that some women reach a certain age suddenly want to be a mother, it was true for me. I remember when at 33, I began to consider you. The first time I met you, I was laying on the couch of VJ, a healer specializing in a healing practice called rebirthing. For months now, she's been taking me back to my own birth. Sometimes we do this in water to make it easier for me to enter the spaces where I began. Together, we visit my mother's womb, a time before words. In those moments, all that exists is water and the drumbeat of my mother's heart. Every visit, VJ asks me to recall my descent down the birth canal. Some days I resist the best way I know how. I escape into my mind, the wordless place of meditation. When she notices this has happened, she asks me to change position, to get on the floor on all fours, and I have to pump up and down. I don't like this. I prefer the drifting. Then one day, while floating on her couch, there you were, touching my face as a blind person reads Braille. My face, a map you followed. Your hands I now know. I could feel your spirit, the lightness of you, as you introduced yourself to me. And this is a poem. Actually, Renee's heard this one, and Adrian. It's called Umbilical, and it's got sections, so I'll go 1, 2. So 1. A navel string connecting us, delivering sustenance until shock of light awakens me. Doctors, nurses in masks surround sound, words delivered. It's a girl. 2. Liquid born, I linger on the edge of what I know about my mother, the way she held me within her womb. I have wondered, did she want me? I do recall her saying the best days of my life were the days my children were born. Tied to us, she could not leave. 3. Firstborn, the only girl, I held potential, egg-filled promises of love, delivered faulty fetuses, until one managed to hold on. 4. My son, I wanted a water birth for you, no shocks of light or masked faces. I wanted to welcome you. But once you arrived, I could not hold you. Arms, knees shaking, I vibrated loss, mourned the absence of water. The crooked path down a canal too narrow. I give thanks that you made it, son. Now that you are here and I am alone, ghosts linger, nibble on your toes, whisper in my ear, reminding me of my mother's words, of my mother's love. She too is glad you are here. So the book is a journey of healing, and it's got a lot to do with my ancestry. I'm Métis and Icelandic, and my Métis family sort of denied their heritage, so I was always a bit confused by how we looked and what we said we were. It was sort of a disconnect there. So this chapter is called Chapter 8, and it's Belonging, Breaking the Curse. I had thought we were cursed. I didn't know it was colonization. And it begins with a quote from Richard Wagamis, who is also in this chapter in another section. I spent a year in a circle with him and his spouse, Deborah Powell, at the time. And they had us to their home, and we would have circles with them for about a year, once a month. And it was a time that was a very difficult time for me. And it was when I decided maybe I could be a writer. So Richard Megaways' quote is from Runaway Dreams. There are spirit voices talking, weaving threads of disparate stories into one great oral tapestry of talk that will outlast us all. The story of a place called Canada that has become to mean our home. And the person here who I speak of as he who welcomed me, I don't name these people because of the fact that most of them I met in recovery, and we don't talk about who we are. It's anonymous. On particularly bad days, the days when I don't know what to do with myself, Jesse, my son, and I visit he who welcomed me. One day, Jesse comments on a picture that he who welcomed me has just finished. It was an all-seeing eagle with piercing eyes that followed you around the room. There was life in the drawing. Jesse felt the power in it. He who welcomed me says, if you like it, I will give it to you. That is our way. To a 7-year-old who has known poverty, this seems extraordinary. I know my son, and that he will want to test the truth of this, so I'm not surprised when he lifts his hand, points to the picture of the wolf hanging on the wall. Now I'm uncomfortable. I know that he who welcomed me makes his living selling his art and often has trouble finding the money for art supplies. I say nothing. Words don't work with Jesse. Instead, I move towards my son, lift my right hand. Touch is a gentler way of asking him to pause, to reflect on what he does next. But he who welcomes me intercepts my hand. Soon Jesse is the recipient of another drawing, a burial ground. Those 3 art pieces traveled with us from home to home through many years. Each carried a message. The eagle spoke to us of love, of being close to the Creator. Wow. And being able to see far. There is power in seeing. The wolf reminded us to be humble, that we needed others. Being part of a pack teaches us to be right-sized, that we are part of the whole. We need to know our place, hold others up. The four poles of the burial scaffolding held bodies wrapped in birch bark, ancestors raised to the sky, red cloth flapping in the wind. This one took the longest to reveal itself to me. I knew that even though I loved graveyards, I did not want to be buried. It did not feel right to me. There is dignity in being held up. I would later learn it was so much more than that. Some teachings take time. So that is a little snippet from the book. Thank you. Sorry, I should put my mask on. And thank you, Shauna.
Pleasure, my girl. Okay. Thank you, Jónína. I'm looking forward to reading that whole thing. I got a little sneak preview of it earlier. It's beautiful and an important book, as they all have been. Thank you. Our next reader is Renee Sarojini Saklikar. Renee is a poet and lawyer who lives in Vancouver on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. She is the author of 4 books, including the groundbreaking poetry book Children of Air India, which was a marvel to me, and was about the bombing of the Air India Flight 182. It won the Canadian Authors Association Poetry Prize, but more than that, I think it spoke about erasure both formally and from all of the senses in a way that was new for us and inspiring for us. Co-author with Dr. Mark Winston of the poetry and essay collection Listening to the Bees, which was the winner of the 2019 Gold Medal Independent Publishers Book Award in the Environment and Ecology category. Renee also curates the lunch poems at SFU, which have been online and probably will continue to be, as well as in person eventually, again, and they're really great, so I recommend that you check those out. And the Vancouver Poetry Phone, which is a new project, which is really lovely as well, so thank you for that. Renee teaches creative writing, law, and ethics at VCC and SFU, and she's reading tonight from her newest book, Bramah and the Beggar Boy, an epic fantasy in verse. And I've had a look at this book, and again, I'm so inspired by the formal innovation and the insight, the emotional intelligence and the political intelligence in this book. It's a gift to us, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from it. Please welcome Renee Sarojini.
Oh yeah, we got to do the thing. Wow, she's her own sound tech person at her own reading. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm going to take this off as well. Oof, it's like liberation. What an honor. Thank you for your grace and your compassion and your intelligence, both of you. What a fabulous reading from Jónína. And of course, Shauna's beautiful, beautiful book, Blue Gait. If everyone doesn't have a copy, you should get one. Thank you for centering us in this place as an immigrant settler woman. I thank the elder for the centering of us in this place. And it's probably a good introduction to a little bit of what I'm going to read you, not too much. It's a really long epic I'm working on. I always feel like, it's a big book and you get up here and we've been sitting here for a while and I just want to say, it's just a few poems from it. It's actually just book 1 of a really long epic that I've been working on for 10 years. Yeah, I'm not sure. We're all called, right, to do what we're going to do. So It's about climate change and inequality and the feminine mythology, reintroducing female lives into big epics. It's a love story. It's about loss. But tonight I've selected 9 shortish poems, and I'm just going to read fragments from even those 9, centering on climate change and climate justice. I'm very honored that someone at her own book launch would have others read. It says everything about you. You're a beautiful person inside and out. So I dedicate this reading to you, Shauna. That gate, the oracle, her icy breath. Oh yeah, and I should say, it's all in verse. So you know when you go to those readings and afterwards there's always someone in a family going, yeah, you know, that modern poetry, but I like poetry that rhymes. I don't understand it. Okay, so you're gonna get a lot of rhymes, so you can't complain about not getting right now. That gate, the oracle, her icy breath. Beware increments that gather apace, equinox and solstice shifting in place. Oh, precision and ecliptic, our earth on her axes, tilted and turned, pushed off course by our actions, her perfect ratio, precision 23.5 and turn. Yewberries misshapen, birds drop and fall, fast is our future, the present, all gone. Fragments of old reports, unverified. Consortium assessment, Pacifica region in the year of the rain 20XX. Legal tender done. Ice caps melting faster than expected. Each paper said accelerated events, surging tides, extreme conditions, overwhelmed systems, low precipitation, extended drought, wildfires, insect infestations, and water rights abandoned, shortages vast. Faster than expected, each scientist said. Resistance song. At the year's midnight we sighed, heads bent to perimeter, where oracles foretold colony collapse, our aunties saving mason bees, small finds in handmade glass jars, wildfires in November, ash mixed with ice, our skin dry and cracked, scalps covered in lice. Gray skies unending, snow drought extending, salal leaves withering, their spines snapped in two. Overheard about Bramah the locksmith. She's the hero of the whole thing, and she shapes in and out of it. Overheard. Small, wiry brown, yet British, sly too, quick, skilled with lock and key, her long black hair braids touching her leather pack sack, tools plus lasers, all the latest gadgets for openings. No lock that ever met her hands too tough or sticky. 1,000 scrapes, she'd dodge them all. One soldier from the before time even called her Kalo. No one ever knew why, just laughed. She collected nicknames, light year to porthole, them hard ones, April or June, the worst. In the nick of time, a turner of bad odds, her body on the line of any fire, her cheek scarred, smooth skin though, and the softest lips. The great abandonment. It were a coming together of drought. It were a virus let loose, lock and key, those protein receptors encoded, and it were fissures in the earth, deep fault lines. It were mass migrations, lost belongings, that child set down the waves of a beach. It were any number of armed militias, roaming as temperatures soared than the ice, those roaring forest fires, farms let go. We kept telling ourselves, unprecedented, over our shoulders, long looks at the past. The 5 catastrophes. By water, the soul, tsunami seepage, cascading, eroded. By fire, the eyes, scorched, singed, blasted, burned to melt. By earth, the body, trembling, split, collapsed on knees, tumbled and crushed. By wind, the voice, blown, sifting syllables, winnowed circumference, made square by four, ripped, torn, worn, howl. Battle song of the streets for all of us, we that assemble consortium band, we whispered the city, pitched battles, informers and miscreants. Our footsteps crushed wild thyme, boots cracked cement, ropes to scale upwards those walls. We wanted to be counted, yet deplored repetition, stick-to-stick beatings, blood. Children as young as 10 years old coughed and screamed. Freedom fighter, terrorist, who's right? Wrong. IED, baby, your bombs, our arms. Boom. From the medical records found of Bramah in the year 2050, barrios, camps, outside perimeter, lineups, under the bridge. Inside, a young girl, her name forgotten. No one calls her. She is never spoken to. Small build, dexterous. Black hair, eyes slanted at their corners. She never laughs. Head bent most times. She builds things. She calls them finds, her teeth, bones, unexamined. Afternoons, the heat, dust, that acrid curtain. Wind whips red, she finds places inside culverts where no streams, fingers fast into hoarded, stolen, saved. Her six-wheeled machine scrapped aluminum, prized at the site where once Safeway, the Battle of Kingsway, a song. The aunties initiate us into portal maintenance. In our cabin in the woods, we chimed glass stemware from the before. Swarovski with each toast, our laughter rang out raucous. To good health, we said, masks under our chins, and a bad memory. Then we fell over giggling, coughing. One TV wire snaked illicit Big E hookup, contraband whiskey, flavored vapes, our eyes still clear enough to count acorns, red leaves turning red-edged, warming a smoker, straw-filled skeps. Each season we met and said the same things. Each decade, Earth's tilt toward and away. Bring us the linden tree, Bramah, we'd say, sweet flowers and bees to fight another day.
We're getting there, right? I think it's getting kind of smooth at this point. Renee, thank you for that beautiful reading. I can't wait to hear more. Thank you. So to begin, I have many people to thank. When a book comes together after those hours of being by yourself at your desk, then other people's hands find their way to it, and that's a kind of celebration too. So to Mona Fertig at Mother Tongue Press, who is the most joyful editor and book publisher on the planet and has been for many, many years. This book would not have come into being without Mona. She sent me a note asking if I had a manuscript, and I said, oh no, Mona, I need a year. And then a year later she said, you said a year, how's it coming? And so I had to pull something together, and then we had these beautiful conversations that can happen when a book is coming together. And then because of Mona's community, the cover happened, and then the editing happened, and then the design happened. And to all of those people, I offer my thanks, and also to my students, especially those of you who are here and at home tonight. To be in circle with other writers. This is my 23rd year of teaching, and yeah. And this is not the first time I've said it, but you know, each year, each session, I think I'm not going to be surprised and amazed by what happens at table, and yet I am surprised and amazed each time. So thank you very much. In fact, during lockdown, the April of last one, it was one of my students' idea to write a poem a day. It's a thing that happens for Poetry Month, and so we all decided to go for it. And by the end, then we just emailed them to one another, and by the end of the month, there were like 147 emails of new poems that we had all written. So that, in part, is what helped me finish this manuscript. So thank you. All the way around, we made it, all the way around this lake. Your bell sound hands and the lightning you sometimes wrestle, sometimes ride, and me with my slow-eyed, slack-kneed gelding, all the way around the path beside the water, and every shape and sound and motion and line that wonders us, present and harbored. And now we can rest there the way we always wanted, easy on opposite shores, the brazen grace of her belly between us rippling all the way, and try to understand the sky the way the sky is today. All around us, willow bend, highway, blue, all around the waver of it, slender and bending, tender as cello notes mellowed and held. And air close, close as a deep story shared, all the way the body unfolding and mouth soft, the words only few. And then there are the leaves, scoring sound across the hours for wind. They are flame fringe of earth shawl, leapt up from taproot, old the tremor under, being what sustains us, and all around and beyond any longing and closer is witness. And now we understand all the way how walking softly near beloved things renews us, helps us go on without fuss or even words. We can let ourselves flare all the way around, make song, tremble. So these poems I think about as very small songs, and I feel that they are on the way to some other songs. So you'll notice that I wasn't on purpose playing around with sound, but I realize now that was later what was going on. This one is a poem about a kind of bridging between my community work and I guess being on the bridge of community building, yeah. And it starts off with a little line from Miloš: peace, peace, what is finished is finished. Now is later. All the materials of world toxic, our questions, survival, our answers, a torn curve of mystery flung back to ordinary hands, even as her own lay palms up, awkward in her lap, say, enough now. No, no more. To give power back to the hands of the unjust transfigures. Though what is unknown remains for its own time to surface, but now is later. Drone strikes, beheadings, raids on Unistoten, oil spills, plastics, global diaspora, blocked migrations across the globe, a cup of water, hunger, oldest perennial. Now is later. Her red slipped-rhythmed grace sifts now, tips a late orbit, its circle ticks and phrase elliptic, and the sky-minded boy says, piano, piano, though he does not mean the muffled hymn of oil-slicked shore rocks, parched stutter of the drought-stricken wren. He does not mean the neon ring of arsenic light through forest smoke, nor the veiled profanity of the 1%. He does not mean the mewling boy on hands and knees searching for drug dust on the floor of his mother's state-run home. Because now is later. She says, piano, piano. This is remnant through backglance, strand of the always dissident cotton thread she is offered, picks up again, fingers, wonders to matter. Thank you. I wasn't going to read this poem today. This is about the Wet'suwet'en territories, and it's dedicated to Frida. But then there's been some more interventions there recently. There was a demonstration at Clark and Hastings at noon today, which I couldn't go to, and this poem references, I think, the previous Februaries, maybe 2 Februaries ago. This time I watch it live on the bus on my way to work. After weeks of harassment, surveillance, after years of defending unceded lands, Unistoten, lands of drinkable water, lands of hunting and gathering, food and medicine, honored and stewarded by the peoples these lands know. A camp there, a healing center, red dresses to honor our missing, shifting, wind alive with their names. This time, I watch it live, weeks after UNDRIP is adopted amid self-congratulations, unanimity, millennia late, misaligned. This time, bell swing of her cape in prayer, full throttle heart song rings along the water, a school bell alarms air. The fire leaps, devours the fraudulent paper of injunction. Goons in police garb, army fatigues, sharpshooters, drones, helicopters, guns, SWAT games and weaponry, their paltry white goon speak. And our matriarchs sing. Call in the ones the land knows, the water knows, ancestors, flames of red dresses. When the arrests come, they sing the women's warrior song, the one we all know. I hum it on the bus, jaw clenched, as the cops arrest them, one by one, as they drive a truck over sacred fire mid-ceremony. My heart is tractored, ripped as earth. I work through a day, fractured cells, singed with only witness. Then the dome of night. I'm walking and look south, and there, the moon and Venus midwinter, gate of light. It's as if my bones are flung up, gathered and held by the shining, even as I am not the one arrested. I am not among the disappeared, nor am I relative to these lands. After this time, red dresses lift in wind, songline of blood in all the directions, all the times, dear, so dear the resistances. Just one cop is gentled by the wavering, removes one dress with tender hands before discarding it, dismantling, though everything remains. This old story, old intervention. My cells cleave, hope runnels out. Weeks later, I meet an old friend. Our long conversation, a loose red thread. We speak of this days between silences, the sludge and muck of it. We speak of this day by turns between silences, low sounds in our throats, under what language can offer us. And there, few words, long kindness. I am held up, we are held up, light and breath where our eyes meet, latched softly, blue swing of an old gate, gate of slow horses around us. Despite this tyranny, despite this always threadbare permission, despite atrocities, frayed earth are missing. There are drums across the world for an end. The last bell sound does not silence. So I'm just going to end with one soft one so that, just to be kind. I started paying attention to the different names of the moons because of Gregory Schofield's Love, Medicine, and One Song. And if you have not read that book, it's a life-changing book to read. So this is a poem about the buck moon. There's also a poem about the sturgeon moon in this book. On the buck moon, ledge of your hip bone and shadow flung across your belly like sonar. Drops of after shower water cling and release. I bring my face there, sip, slip across wet skin known to me as sunrise. Every blue morning condenses, my mouth a magnet of low song before light could begin. How easily we mingle with innocence, how necessary. We are small beings in this huge catastrophe, our feeble recycling bins, the world burns and nothing, another genocide. Children in cages at an unceded border. We know all this, but moment undoes us. The fractal promise, one tender thing. Skin anchors song, and we stay near. We stay. Thank you very much. So thank you, everybody, for coming. And we can gather and have a bit of a chat now. Thank you all for coming.